What really obvious thing have you only just realized? That the phrase mint condition means like new because it's the condition coins leave the mint in. I must have been around 11 or 12 years old when I realized that in order of appearance during the end credits of a movie doesn't list the actors or actresses by who is just the most good looking. I learned a couple of years ago that it's not the mayor of bad news, it's actually the bearer of bad news. I'm 25. Cilantro and coriander are the same plant. I only just today realized that the walk the plank on a boat is not a special edition that pirates added to their ships as a means of public execution that looked like a little wooden diving board. It is in fact the very same plank as the gangplank that you'd normally use to get on and off the ship. It is not the presence of the plank that is threatening, but the absence of the dock. Until recently, I also thought that, despite the obvious name, being keel-hauled meant that you were just thrown off the ship and left behind. I didn't realize that they tied you to a line, threw you off, and dragged you under the ship's keel. That you have to add a can of water to Campbell's soup. Apparently, I've been drinking straight condensed soup this whole time. The first time I visited the USA, I was on my own and in New York and going to all of the museums. I kept seeing signs that said no strollers and thought, because we call strollers prams in the UK, that you guys were just super strict about the proper amount of attention required to visit a museum. I actually pretended to show more interest than I had in order to not be thought of as some deadbeat out for a casual stroll. It wasn't until about day 3 that I saw a no strollers sign that included a graphic for idiots like me. That calling someone simple is just a nice way of calling someone stupid. My wife informed me of this after 28 years of my grandma calling me simple. I realized at the age of 26 that narwhals are real because they were on an Octonauts episode. I walked into the room and was like, I thought they only do real animals on this show, and then the kid's dad said, "You're joking, right?" Honestly, we can give this author some leeway for not realizing that the unicorn dolphin was in fact a real creature. Now we just have to trick him into thinking that the horsey version is actually a living, breathing fauna as well. That when I was a kid and my dad would take me to the video store on Friday nights and he would go into the back room where only adults were allowed, that he was looking at naughty adult films. I kept seeing the same Chinese characters on restaurants' signs and I always wanted to know what it meant. A week ago I found out. They mean restaurant. I used to always pour water into our coffee maker one glass at a time. It was such a pain in the butt, especially to fill the reservoir to the number of cups I wanted. Until I realized I could just fill the carafe with water, which has the exact same measurements, and pour the water in that way. I recently realized I was allergic to carrots. I just thought they made everyone's mouth numb, you know? Like almonds. I also learned recently that I have an almond allergy. Same here. I thought that raw hazelnuts don't taste good because they give this weird tingle in your mouth. Then I found out I had a nut allergy when it suddenly turned from tingle to anaphylaxis, and I ended up in a hospital for eating nut chocolate. Oh, same! I asked my husband why carrots made your mouth itchy. I'm a 35-year-old woman. I always thought you can't have your cake and eat it too was a weird saying, because why wouldn't I be able to eat my freaking slice of cake? It's my cake! Nobody was telling me that I can't have my cake. It turns out they mean you can't eat the cake while also still retaining it. Once it's eaten, it's gone. An idiom I didn't understand until this year. I'm 27. The Italian version of this is that you can't have a full bottle and a drunk wife, or something along those lines. This sounds ridiculous, but I recently found out about the term knee-jerk reaction. My whole life I'd been saying it how I heard it and just figured it was spelled something like knee-jerk reaction, like it was some psychology term. English was not my first language, so I was mind-blown when I realized how keys, kiss, he's, his, this, these, among other things, differed in sound and pronunciation. I first noticed this when I told my boyfriend I wanted a keys, and he looked very confused. Now I try my best to pronounce them properly. My whole life I thought pay-per-view was actually pay-per-view, because I'd only ever heard people say it and only recently saw it written out. My boyfriend didn't know that his electric toothbrush has a timer on it that goes off at 1 minute and 2 minutes. He actually returned it and got a new one thinking it was broken, since the timer is just a brief sort of pause and reduction in the vibration. He'd be like, "What the frick? I literally just charged this fricking thing," thinking that the battery was already dying. One day, I can't remember exactly what the conversation was, I brought up how I liked that my toothbrush let me know when I'd brushed long enough, and it was like a light bulb went off in his head. And suddenly he put it together that that was what his toothbrush was doing the whole time. That the big ship's wheel I got to turn as a kid was not actually controlling the cruise ship. This jogged my memory of something. When I was around 13, I was on a flight with a bunch of other kids. I fell asleep during the flight but woke up during some turbulence. A couple of kids near me saw me waking up startled and made a big show of saying, "Wow, I can't believe the pilot did a barrel roll." A few other people I talked to about confirmed it, and it took me embarrassingly far into adulthood to realize some people were just messing with me. I mean, a pilot on a commercial flight wouldn't do that, right? I was 28 before I realized the meaning to the "why is 6 afraid of 7" joke. I always just thought it was dumb. 7, 8, 9, like you're just counting. The electric bill wasn't paid until later in my life. I realized that to be in one's birthday suit, it means to be without clothes. I thought for the longest time it was a specific set of clothes you would wear on your birthday each year. I found out when I asked, what happens when you don't fit in your birthday suit anymore? For the longest time, I always thought that prima donna was pre-Madonna. Principal Belding from Saved by the Bell is named Bell Ding. The reason the cord on the vacuum spins is so that you can take the whole cord off at once instead of unraveling it one loop at a time, like I have been my whole life. That parents have children write letters to Santa so they can figure out what to buy them for Christmas. I can't believe how I never put that together after 32 years on this earth. I thought it was just a fun little tradition. My bedroom door was broke and I finally got around to fixing it. I thought the knob was broke because it was pushed in towards the door. So I pulled it out and realized that was how you locked the door. As a small child, maybe like age 4, my family told me the powder room door at my grandparents' house didn't lock. I had a reputation for accidentally locking myself into places, so they didn't want me locking myself in there, I guess. I was 18 before I accidentally locked the door just like that, realized how it worked, and emerged from the bathroom mortified and amused that I'd gone all these years thinking that the door just didn't lock. No one even remembered lying to me about the lack of lock. It's called Men's Wear, as in W-E-A-R house, and not Men's Warehouse, as in a regular warehouse. It's been a couple of years since I realized this, and I think it's just a clever name now. What the frick? I just looked it up and I still don't believe you. Consider the narrator educated about this as well. That's a play on words that's completely escaped me for several decades since I learned about the store. The villain in Halloween is not played by Mike Myers. It would have been a lot funnier if he was. This little piggy didn't go to the market to do any shopping. Wait. Then why are the other pigs eating roast beef? I feel like there's at least one of these pigs with its own agenda. For a long time, I thought that to bust a nut meant that you were going to kick a guy in the nuts or beat him up. So anytime I was getting worked up or angry talking about some guy, I would say, I'm going to bust his freaking nut, not really knowing what I was meaning. Nobody ever said anything, but it was always followed by my friends laughing, so I assumed it was because I was being dramatic. Years go by, and my coworker is telling me about some rude person he met, and I said, you should definitely bust that guy's nut, to which he paused and said, do you even know what that means? Suffice it to say, I was extremely embarrassed and horrified when he explained it to me. Similarly, I had a friend who didn't know that friends with benefits meant, well, you know. She thought it meant like a friend from work who was literally beneficial to your work. I had a boss that was under the impression that bust a nut meant to work extremely hard. Suffice to say, our team meeting ended awkwardly when Sean would tell us to all go and bust a nut after the meeting. Super embarrassing, but in college I would order Roman Cokes because I thought everyone else was ordering the same thing. It turns out I misheard everyone and found out it was just rum and Coke. When teenagers said we're going to TP a house, I always thought it was teepee, and it never made sense to me since they just covered a house with toilet paper. I recently realized that they didn't mean put up a Native American tent, and that TP was the initials for toilet paper. I'm 27. This girl I know has a dog named Diogi. 2 years into knowing her and being around Diogi, I was having a conversation with her sister-in-law and said, "I love the name Diogi. How did she come up with that?" Her sister-in-law responds, "Dog." And I said, "Yeah, it's a neat name." She started laughing and said, "No, D-O-G, the way you spell dog." I'm still mind-blown about this. We got a chocolate Labrador quite a few years ago. My dad has been known to name animals after what species they are. This time around, my mom wouldn't let him name the dog Dog, so he named her Kitty. He also named his horse No Name. This is why we don't let him name animals anymore. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out Easy Mode, also linked below, and subscribe. Pufferfish suck in water, not air. Okay, yeah, I saw one get pulled from the ocean and deflated and it spat out water. I was shocked to my very core. Everyone else was like, yeah, of course. That they put measurement stickers next to gas station doors, so if a robber is running out of the store, you can get a better estimate of their height. I always thought they were just there for something fun to do on road trip stops. More than that, they're not actually accurate if you stand against them and measure that way. They're supposed to be placed so the camera will show the correct height of the person, compensating for the angle of the camera. I'm currently in my mid-30s. I didn't realize until I was about 28 years old that my mum's name was Betty and her sister's name was Wilma. Betty and Wilma, from the Flintstones. And yes, they were definitely named after the cartoon, I asked. Flash forward 2 years later, and my Aunt Wilma informed me that they were fraternal twins. Again, another thing for 30 years I hadn't known. A few folks have asked for a bit of context on the twin thing. My mum died when I was fairly young, so I never had her birthday as a thing. And I wasn't super close to Wilma, so I wasn't really celebrating hers either. I guess it was just known in my family, so nobody ever mentioned it until totally randomly she said something about it. On the name thing, they actually both went by their nicknames their whole lives, so I never even thought of them as Betty and Wilma, but just Mum and Aunt Cookie. She likes to bake. When I was little, we had an Australian shepherd named Sydney. I didn't understand why her name was Sydney until 18 years later. I saw a place labeled as Public House when I moved nearby recently. It was at that moment I realized, oh, that's why they call them pubs. It's short for public house. In Russian phrase, public house means a whorehouse, not a pub. I wonder. When people say that tornadoes sound like trains, they don't mean that tornadoes whistle a choo-choo sound. My sister asked me about 2.5 months ago when we were watching John Wick 3 during the desert scene if they were real, and I asked what were real, and she said Sandlands. And I busted out laughing so gosh darn hard and said, "You mean deserts? Yeah, they're real." Thinking about it right now got me laughing. Up until last year, I thought Nat Geo was a person. I then realized it was short for National Geographic. Nathaniel Giotopoulos actually was a founder of the channel, but it's only a coincidence. I thought astigmatism was astigmatism, so I thought you could have two stigmatisms. Honestly, in my 30s, I've been wondering about this for the better part of a decade now and never bothered to look it up. I'm learning so many facts for dummies in this video. Today, my friend realized pipe cleaners were originally for cleaning pipes, after I suggested using one to clean a metal straw because it's similar to a pipe. Oh, I had that one about 7 years ago when my high butt was trying to clean out a glass pipe. Man, this is so stupid. Someone should invent some sort of frickin' pipe cleaner. Oh. That people who always seem to know what direction it is, north, south, east, and west, aren't somehow magical magnets but are rather just noticing where the gosh darn sun is in the sky. Why did no one tell me? The sun is a huge indicator, but I know plenty of people who keep track of direction without the sun without even thinking about it. I'm not one of them. I regret to inform you all that it just occurred to me the other day that The Sims is called The Sims because they're in a simulation. I'm 26. That getting your tires rotated means moving the tires to a different location on the car and not just spinning the wheel. I learned that allspice is actually one spice and not a blend of spices containing cinnamon and nutmeg. I also just learned that from your comment. Personal injury lawyer commercials play more frequently during daytime TV because their clientele is injured, stuck at home watching daytime TV. The houses in Bikini Bottom are car mufflers.
What the frick?
And Patrick is dumb and knows nothing because he lives under a rock. Bikini Bottom is named after the nuclear bomb testing site at Bikini Atoll, and sea life is weird from the radiation. Also, bikinis are named after the radioactive site as well. In Pokemon, there is a same-type attack bonus where if you use a move that is the same type as the Pokemon itself, then the move does 1.5 times the damage. People also refer to it as stab damage, which I thought was just a colloquial term for 1.5 times damage. I only just realized that stab stands for same-type attack bonus. My mum used to make my sisters and I belly buttons for dinner. I was 27 when I realized that they were actually tortellini, but she knew we were dumb kids and would refuse something named so strange even though they were delicious. To clarify how dumb we were, once she was making fried shrimp for dinner. My sisters and I hated fried shrimp, but we loved popcorn shrimp from Long John Silver's. We complained, so my mum said, "Okay, go away and I'll make you some popcorn shrimp instead." We left and she says she took half the shrimp she was already using and cut it in two and then fried it that way. We cleaned the fricking bowl. We were stupid kids and she was a good, smart mum. Cruella de Vil was a cruel devil. The word for explorer in Spanish is exploradora. Dora the Explorer is a Spanish play on words. When I was a kid, my mum told me my rabbit Rosie went to live on a farm. In my early 20s, I saw an episode of The Sopranos where everyone makes fun of Tony when he realizes his dog didn't really go to live on a farm. That's when I realized Rosie had not gone to a farm either. And I would like to officially apologize for the cascading wave of terrible realizations my post has caused. Truly, we sit on a throne of lies. Oh man, I dated a girl once who started telling me about her old dog who went to live on a farm. I didn't even say anything, but just the look on my face made her stop and think about it for the first time and go, oh no. And we had a good laugh about that, but it was pretty wild to see the realization in real time. Today, the radio taught me Mariah Carey wrote and sang All I Want for Christmas Is You. All this time, I thought it was just a cover that she did so well that people loved it more than the original. Turns out, it is the original. Undergarments and socks are there to cover places that sweat and stink so that you don't sweat and stink on the thing on top of the undergarment, and can replace the undergarment more often. Except for men's undershirts, which exist so that nobody has to see my moobs when I wear a white dress shirt. Cat toes. I knew they existed, I've seen them and everything. It's an extremely obvious thing. A few weeks ago, I touched a cat's paw and started laughing like it was the craziest thing ever. Then proceeded to make my discovery known. You're all welcome. Also, bunnies and a bunch of other animals have their own kind of toe things too. Phineas and Ferb are shaped like a P and an F. The song It's Getting Hot in Here isn't actually talking about here's temperature. I felt very, very stupid. Dove soap and Dove chocolate are from different companies. Cigarettes are called cigarettes because they're mini cigars. Alucard from Castlevania is Dracula backwards. I honestly thought that this script was just going to be a home run of me laughing at other dummies who missed self-explanatory expressions and obvious references, but this is the 9th or 10th time one of them has blown my mind, so what does that say about me? Actually, don't answer that question. In the movie Cats vs. Dogs, when the dog goes, "Son of my mom," he's actually saying son of a B word. Remember that the secret agent blue-gray kitten with the Russian accent? That breed of cat is called a Russian blue. That the Houston Astros comes from astronauts, and the Baltimore Ravens are because Edgar Allan Poe lived and is buried in Baltimore. I'm 30 and realized a few months ago that howdy is cowboy for how do you do. Tenure is a whole word and not 10-year, which is what I thought teachers got as like job security once they'd worked for 10 years. Say My Name by Destiny's Child is about a girl on the phone to her man and she wants proof that he's not with another girl. I realized when I was 16 that reindeer were real. I 100% thought they were fake like elves and Santa Claus. This is so stupid, but I didn't realize my mums were gay until I was almost 14 and I literally heard my mum say, "I'm gay" to my grandma as a joke. I knew that lesbians and same-sex and gays were relatively interchangeable, but it didn't click as "my mums are lesbians," which is another term for being gay and they are gay, until that moment. I also have a gay mom, but I didn't know the word lesbian till 6th grade. I got into a massive fight with my best friend because she called my mom a lesbian, and I didn't know what that was, so I thought it was an insult. Nope, turns out if your mom has a girlfriend, she's probably a lesbian. I'm 25 next week and I still think about it. The Grammys are called that because the awards are gramophones. That Ecuador is named after the equator. Yep, literally just equator, but in Spanish. My friend, 22 years old, only realized last year that dolphins have to swim and live in the water to survive. He thought they're land mammals, but they just really like to swim for fun. That Michelangelo's David is David from David and Goliath. How did I not know this? I thought it was just a dude called Dave. I love how many comments I'm getting from people learning this today or very recently, and who just thought he was some dude called Dave as well. We got there in the end, guys. Better late than never. Bonus, I also never knew there was a sling. I thought that was his trousers, and yes, I honestly thought that. I never saw the rocks. That American Express and Amex are the same thing, and I've been helpfully telling customers in Australia, yep, we take both, for years. Okay, this was a couple of years ago, but it was something I realized way too late in life. You're supposed to use the towel to dry yourself after a shower. I was just wrapping it around myself and walking around until I air dried. I live in a part of Chicago called Greektown for 8 years, and I never realized the blue and white Christmas lights were meant to represent the colors of their flag. It just dawned on me today. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out Easy Mode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.